Welcome to the YouTube channel. My name is Brock Ashby. I'm an online body transformation coach and personal trainer, training people all over the world. And today we're going to dictate what is better for rates of fat loss. Fast fat loss versus slow fat loss. That is the clickbait thumbnail title that we're going to be using today. And there's a study in 2010 that did a pretty much exact analysis on this. And I'm going to break it down. Then we're going to talk about the real world application of it. And then we're going to talk about the best practices to execute the strategy that this study suggests. So in this study, there was a 6-month lifestyle intervention, which ultimately means people trying to lose weight for 6 months. And then after that, they had an extended care program for a year. So they were kind of just trying to maintain, but they were watched over, let's say. And there were 3 groups. So there was fast fat loss, moderate fat loss, and slow fat loss. Fast was 700 grams per week. Moderate was in between 700 grams and 230 grams, and then slow was 230 grams or less per week. So we're talking about fat loss here. After 6 months, the fast group lost 13.5 kilos. The moderate group lost pretty much 9 kilos, and the slow was 5 kilos, right? And then after 18 months, which is kind of what matters when we're talking about long-term fat loss, sustainable fat loss, which is what really matters, right? A lot of people talk about before, after, like before and after photos. This is like the before, after photo. 18 months, the fast group were down to 10.9 kilos lost, moderate 7.1, and slow 3.7. So ultimately, there were no significant group differences found in weight regain between 6 and 18 months. 2.6 for fast fat loss, 1.8 for moderate, and 1.3 kilos for slow. So no significant difference relative to how much they lost, but the fast and moderate groups were 5.1 and 2.7 times more likely to achieve 10% weight losses of their body weight at 18 months than the slow group. So, to put that in just everyday chat, the fast and moderate groups lost more weight over 18 months than people that lost weight slow and steady, let's say. And that kind of confuses a lot of people because people will say, don't lose weight too fast because you'll just end up binge dieting. And I've said that too. And I do say that to some people. There is nuance in this situation. But a lot of people are scared of losing fat really fast because they think they're going to try to gain it back really fast. And they're like, oh, slow and steady wins the race. Slow and steady wins the race. And that is true for some people. Once again, it really depends on the person, which is what we're going to get into in this video. So in terms of losing weight fast, moderate, or slow, it comes down to what is best for that person. Now, I want to use myself as an example first. So if I try to lose fat fast, which I've done many times, I've really screwed up. And I've been on that side of going back to binge eating, having a terrible relationship with food, and just obsessing over food and actually not getting successful results. So when I first started as a PT, I would try to eat clean. I'd try to do intermittent fasting. I would try and just lose weight really fast, be really quick about it. And I'd get to about 6 p.m., 8 p.m. after a big day's work on the gym floor, training people, talking about how they need to improve their diet and train hard and all that kind of stuff. And I'd feel like such a fraud because I'd go home and just start binge eating and I would eat 3,000 to 4,000 calories in one sitting and I wouldn't lose fat for that day. And ultimately, when I was trying to lose fat, I was gaining fat. And I remember one day my said to me, oh, you're looking really big. And that was it was like a dagger to the soul because I was actually trying to lose fat at the time. And he was like, oh, you're looking bigger, you're looking bulkier. And I was like, yeah, this is not working, what I'm trying to do. And it was funny because in my head, I knew that I was trying to lose fat, but I wasn't. And my client was like, oh, he thought he was giving me a compliment, which he was, if I was trying to bulk at that time. But I was literally trying to get shredded and the opposite was happening. And that makes you feel like a real failure as a personal trainer. This was back in 2015, almost 9 years ago now. So some people, if they try to diet too fast, they can't handle it. So they will obsess about food, go into binge eating, or they'll last a day, a couple of days, 3 days, maybe even a week, but then they'll just end up back to where they were before because they can't handle that aggressive calorie deficit. And if we go to the other side of things where people try to lose fat nice and slow, because they they want to be patient, or they've heard don't lose fat too fast or you'll lose all your muscle. So they go really slow. Sometimes you can be overwhelmed and just kind of be like, well, I'm not losing weight. Why am I, not overwhelmed, underwhelmed. And you'll be like, well, I'm losing fat. It's super slow. But it's not really that motivating. It's pretty shit. Like these guys that are losing fat slow, around 250 grams per week, they lost around 5 kilos after 6 months. That's half a year and you've lost 5 kilos. You can lose 5 kilos in a month. You can lose 5 kilos in 8 weeks, 12 weeks. And that seems like a bit of a better place to land as opposed to 5 kilos after 6 months. Obviously, it depends on how much you have to lose, how tall you are, what sex you are, all that type of stuff, how physically active you are. But if you look at it on paper, losing 5 kilos after 6 months isn't tremendous progress if you're trying to pursue fat loss. In over 18 months, a year and a half, you've lost 3.7 kilos. It's not that steady. So here's what I think we should aim for when we're trying to lose fat. There's a magical number that we should be trying to strive for every week, and that's 1% of your body weight. This seems to be the place that research suggests is a great place to land. It's not too slow that you give up, you feel underwhelmed, you feel like you're not making progress, but it's not too fast that it feels like you fall into the old patterns like I would and obsess about food, terrible relationship with food, binge eating, potential eating disorder in the making type of vibe. That seems to be a really good spot to aim for. So I'm 90 kilos. That would be losing 900 grams per week, which sounds like a lot, almost a kilo per week. But for me, that's a pretty steady place to land. And that means I'll only need to diet for like 3 or 4 weeks to land in a pretty significantly leaner spot where I'm almost 3 to 4 kilos lighter than I am now. So if we are going to go for an aggressive deficit, which you totally can do, once again, it has to be for you. Here are some best practices that you can do if you want to lose fat aggressively. And obviously, these apply to if you're losing weight moderately or slowly as well, but these are just things that you should be doing or should be looking out for when you're trying to lose fat. So in terms of staying on track, the main thing that kills people's fat loss diet is hunger and satiety. So feeling way too hungry and not feeling full. So a real basic thing that you can do is increase your fiber, and that usually goes up if you consume things like fruits and vegetables. If you also kind of veer away from processed foods, it's not that the processing of foods is bad, it's more so processed foods are more likely to be hyper palatable, super tasty, and have lots of calorie density to them, or lots of calories for the amount of food that you eat. So a real basic kind of shitty example, if you have a donut versus an apple, like an apple's not processed, it has lots of fiber in it, it has lots of great things in it. A donut has lots of fat in it, lots of carbs, and for like, I guess the same amount of food that you're eating, you're going to get a ton more calories, probably double or triple the amount of calories in a donut than an apple, and kind of get the same amount of satiety from it. Or probably more satiety, way more satiety from an apple. And if you have one donut, the likelihood of you having one is pretty low. If you have one diet and stop, you're a bit crazy. You're probably going to have 2 or 3. So there is that kind of obvious discrepancy in the food. So we do want to try and bump up fiber and drop processed foods because it's going to land in a healthier spot for you. Another thing for fat loss is trying to eat as many foods as possible as opposed to drinking calories. So if we drink calories, it's a lot easier to drink or consume more calories than if we're chewing them. There is a direct study to that if you chew your food more, you're going to consume less calories. So I think that kind of tells us that obviously we don't have to just sit down there and chew our food like rabbits and just unnecessarily chew more. That's kind of taking the wrong takeaway from the study. What we want to do is kind of try to eat our food more than trying to drink them. Like you can drink a thick shake, 1,000 calories like nothing. But if you were to, I guess, eat 1,000 calories, depending on what you have, but it's going to be much harder if that's going to be a healthy meal to consume more calories than that. And best practices to maintain muscle when you go on an aggressive deficit, you want to train close to failure, or train to failure, depending on where you're at. You want to train consistently. I would say a minimum of 3 times per week. I like to land around 4 or 5. and following a well-structured program that's geared towards progressive overload are 3 basic things that you can do to maintain your muscle. Now, the only real way to dictate if you can handle aggressive calorie deficits, moderate or slow, is just to try them for yourself. Once again, I don't do well with aggressive calorie deficits. I go in this dark place that doesn't do very well for me. But when I go to more of a moderate to slow fat loss diet, I get much better results. I can have more calories. I can be patient. I have delayed gratification, no sweat. I know that in 8 weeks, I can lose 4 kilos, which is only 500 grams, which is less than 1% of my body weight per week. So I kind of go more 0.5% of my body weight per week to 1% because that fits better for me. Some people, though, just like to get it done and they like to go aggressive. They like to lose 1 to 2 kilos per week. It's super aggressive, but they can handle it. They just get in a deficit and then they get out. The main thing is, if you're going to be aggressive, know that the exit strategy has to be determined. We're not just going crazy dieting for a month and then just going crazy bulk, because then we're just going into a cycle of getting lean, getting fat, getting lean, getting fat. But when we're finished our getting lean part, we need to be at maintenance or a small surplus so that we can slowly build muscle out of it without putting on unnecessary fat. So, fast fat loss versus slow fat loss. It really depends on you. What can you handle? Try it out. Try going aggressive for 1 week, 2 weeks, a month, see what happens. And then try go slow, see what happens. I think you're going to land somewhere in the middle, but don't let me tell you what you want to do. If you do want a calorie calculator, I have one. The link's in the description. It'll give you maintenance calories if you just want to maintain, or fat loss calories. The fat loss calories are going to be at a 20% calorie deficit, which is a great place to start. However, if you want to create your own calorie deficit by any calculations that you know, you can do that just off your maintenance. And if you want to bulk as well, it gives you a calorie surplus recommendation as well. The link's in the description. If you want coaching that's based on evidence, science, and supported by me, there's one-to-one coaching, there's one-off guides, there's a subscription called Built by Brock, which is really great as well. The links are in the description as well for that. Just go on to teambrockashby.com and check out the programs there. And if you want another video that's pretty similar to this, breaking down evidence and giving you recommendations off the back of it, that'll be here. I'm pretty sure YouTube knows what you want to watch. And I'll see you in the next video. That's it. Cheers.